Hey guys, Timothy Roberts here. This video is going to be about cymbal modifications. I've got a big old stack of mods that people have sent in, and they want various things out of these cymbals, and some of them have issues with shape, issues with tension, some of them are a little bit too heavy, and so we're going to talk about how to diagnose a problem in a cymbal and possible solutions to address that problem. So first up, we're going to talk about this guy right here. Okay, so I don't know how much of it is translating over the phone audio, but we've got a Murat Drill ride, and right off the bat, when I was playing it, the first thing I noticed was right here on the ride, I was getting this tone, this barking seal, hum, overtone that just started to build up, and it felt, even to play, it felt very soft right in this section. So first thing I do then is I come down here and I look at the shape of it. And if you look at the left side there, you see a pretty even curvature. Starting from the bell, going out, it looks pretty uniform. It doesn't look like there's any issues with a dip. And as you come over to the other side, it's very slight, but you can see that it flattens out and almost dips in the profile. It's like right around this portion right here. You can see it's, if it'll focus there, yeah, it's just like a little bit of a dip that comes down, which if I were to put this, I can't with my holding the phone here, but if I was to put this on the ground and press right there, there would be a little bit of softness in this area. So when I play that area, I get this wow, 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 wow kind of hum that feels sort of mushy and soft, and that hum is feeding into the rest of the cymbal. So even when I hit on other parts of the cymbal, I can hear that hum get activated and start to make itself known. So what I'm going to do to address this thing is I'm going to hammer in this section on the underside to give it a little bit more support. Now I'm going to do it from the underside because, as you can tell in the light, it's got these very, very pronounced deep hammer pits. So there is like top tension, significant top tension here. So if I come down and on the underside here just hammer around these divots, I can give it some support and maybe push that material up a little bit so that this can be strong and that hum can get taken care of. Now from there, the customer wants it to feel a little bit more nuanced and get a little bit thinner. The cymbal is 2355 grams, so it's already thin for a 22-inch ride, but it is completely unlathed, other than a sandpaper pass. So that it's an unlathed cymbal, but if you look closely, you can see the scratches here. That's basically where they put it on the lathe and they sandpaper it clean. So I'm going to actually open this up with some lathing, which will make it a little bit less clunky sounding and introduce a little bit of a sparkly, shimmery high end. And that's going to make the cymbal much nicer to play, much more versatile. The customer wants it for a piano trio kind of cymbal, so it's got to be able to function at low volumes without weird hum and overtone that would compete with the other acoustic instruments. Okay, just to show you what I'm talking about, I just put this drill on the ground, right in the portion where it was soft and had the hum. It just presses in, which is, I mean, that's really bad soft spot considering you go around the cymbal and the rest of it is relatively strong, but that one part right there just wants to pop in and out like that. So that's where that hum is coming from, and I'm going to iron that thing out right now. All right, so this Murat drill is actually not going to get any lathing. So I did the work on the underside to iron out the weird tension issue that it had, especially over top of this signature. There was like this major dip and pop, and it was just very, very loose in this one area, and it was flattening out and kind of dipping. So I ironed all of that out, and it's actually good to go. So I'm going to send this back to the customer, and the mod is complete. right, next up we have a 22-inch Carope, however you want to say it, Zildjian ride. I get these rides into the shop very, very frequently. And part of the reason for that, I think, is because they are designed to emulate old Ks, and old Ks have weird shapes. They're not uniform. And so almost all of the Carope rides have misshapen bells. And that can be a cool thing. Sometimes you can come across a really unique cymbal that's got an odd shaped bell and it's got a nice tone. But oftentimes, weird issues in the shape is going to mean weird issues in the sound. So this one has a very gradual bell, and the transition into the body is just very, very, let's see if I can get to focus, very, very smooth. It's like it doesn't have a hard transition there, which to me, when you have like a very gradual transition from bell into bow, you get a very tonal cymbal, and the bell is going to be incredibly integrated. So when you hit the bell, the rest of the body is going to activate like crazy. When you have a hard surface, it's almost like there's a crease here that stops vibration from traveling farther up, or at least it limits vibration. And so when it's gradual like this, you get a lot of feeding. The bell is going to feed the body is going to feed the bell. So in this cymbal in particular, I hit the bell there and the whole cymbal activates. Now the customer feels like this cymbal sounds a little bit tinny, and he wants it to be a little bit more warm and nuanced. So I'm going to take some weight off, and I'm going to modify the bell a little bit. The other issue that it has is over here. It's got a pretty ugly hum, and that is, again, kind of the same issue where right at the base of the bell, there is a little bit of a dip right here, and it kind of flattens out before it starts diving. And so I want to address that area and get that tendency for flatness and for a dip. I want that ironed out so that there's a strong surface here. Over here on this side, it's stronger, but because this side right here is dipped, even when I hit that, this activates. So we want that kind of strong sound that doesn't allow those hums to pop through. And I'm going to need to actually get that ironed out so that the whole thing all the way around can have that. Now the whole cymbal does not sound bad to my ear. When I'm playing on the actual riding surface, I can hear a little bit of that hum feeding into the sound of the cymbal, but it's not so much that it's popping out in a very ugly way. To me personally, it just feels a little bit like a bland sound. It's got actually, I've seen Caropes with much taller profiles than this, but this is still a medium high profile. So I'm not going to want to necessarily raise the profile, but I'm going to want to do some tapering on the edge. It's a 22 and the gram weight is like 2,600 grams. So it's in like a medium thin range, and I think the customer wants more of a thin cymbal. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to try to focus on this bell section, see if I can get a more clearly defined transition so that we can isolate the bell, isolate the body of the cymbal, get less of that clangy, kind of gongy thing. I want a clearer sound with my bell that doesn't activate the body as much. I want to iron out this section here, and then from there it's just about dialing in the weight for whatever your desired purpose. The customer wants this thing thinner. The customer plays a lot of 24 and 26-inch cymbals, so I think even the pitch of a 22 is just too high for this person. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to thin it out to lower that pitch to get it to sit well with their other cymbals. All right, here is the 22 Carope after the modification. So like I talked about in the before video, there were some issues to iron out. Shape-wise, up around the bell, there were some dips. The bell itself was a little out of shape, and the transition here was really, really smooth and gradual. So, like I said I was going to do, I worked on the bell just to create more of a distinction between the bell and the bow. So I wanted to focus there. It's a little bit of a harder line and transition right here. So that clears the bell up, creates for an overall clearer sounding cymbal because the bell is not going to activate the whole cymbal. The cymbal is not really going to be activating this tonal chime-like bell. So the weight removal dropped the pitch down, but the hammering that I did and the ironing out of the shape helped keep a very clear stick. So you'll notice if you listen into the wash, it's a lot lower pitched, but the stick is still pretty high and clear, which is creating that separation that it's creating is giving the cymbal dimension. It's giving it like a high fidelity, high frequency kind of vibe. Not necessarily high frequency, but high definition is a better way of saying it, to where you have lows, you have mids, you have highs, you have clear separation between your wash and your stick, and it's overall going to be a much more functional, usable cymbal. All right, so the beginning of my before video got cut off. This is actually after the modification, but it was a Paiste 22-inch traditional ride. This is a B12 alloy, I believe. Might be B15, not totally sure on that. But the customer wanted me to add some hand hammering, wanted me to break up a little bit of the smoothness, give it some more complexity. And the main thing that I wanted to note with this kind of cymbal that is non-B20 alloy is that the non-B20 alloy has a lower content of tin in the alloy, and tin is what gives a cymbal its sustain, its musicality, and also its brittleness. So B20 being just about the highest tin content cymbal that you can get. It's the most common. Most of the high-end cymbals are made with B20. This means that the high 20% tin content is going to give that cymbal more musicality. Paiste has done an amazing job making non-B20 alloy cymbals, but when you're using B12, B15, B8, B10, basically just denotes the percentage concentration of tin in the alloy. Lower tin content cymbals are going to be a bit more mushy and soft feeling. So the way they get around that, the way cymbal companies get around that, is they add a little bit more physical material. The cymbals are a little bit thicker when they're non-B20. And this allows for there to be enough when you crash it, enough when you're riding on it to be there sonically. But if you lathe these kinds of cymbals really thin, you lose a lot of that tonality because there's that lower tin content, which the tin, again, is adding sustain as well as brittleness. So because this kind of bronze is a lot softer, it can be less prone to cracking if you just like to just wail away on your cymbals. But for making really nice, warm, nuanced, low volume cymbals, they can be tough to pull that kind of sound out of. But I'm going to attempt that with this. So again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hammer it, add a little bit of complexity. I'm going to lathe the edge to open it up a little bit more and just try to make it a little bit more of an interesting sounding cymbal. It is a little bit one-dimensional to my ear, although it is a nice, well-balanced cymbal because Paiste does great at that. We want to add a little grit and a little dirt to this thing. Like I stated in the before video, it was a fairly simple add hammering to sort of break up the smoothness of the wash and sustain the hand hammering acts like little potholes and pits that make it harder for the sound to propagate up and down the cymbal. It has to kind of move around all these roadblocks, obstacles, mountains, valleys, all that kind of stuff. And the result in that is typically a more complex sound. I also did a pass on the lathe, top and bottom, just to tie everything together so that it wouldn't be too dry. All right, we got another Peisty. This is a Masters dry ride. These cymbals are interesting and weird. I've modified quite a few of these dry rides, and they have this like gray surface color on the top and on the bottom, and I believe it's some kind of paint finish. It's, you know, because you can actually see it's kind of on the edge here, sort of like chipping off a little bit. But because it's an actual paint, it is drying up the sound quite a bit. It's something on the surface that's limiting it from being able to sustain and resonate. So if these things have a nice shape, which this one definitely does, it's not as triangular as the last Peisty. It's got a little bit more of a round curvature to it from the base of the bell to the edge. It's nicely shaped. From here, I can literally just lathe it, and I can do a little bit of a taper to get it to open up at a lower volume. But actually just removing this surface finish is actually going to get it to open up quite a bit. It also feels a little bit clunky to play, so adding that taper to the edge will have it feel a little bit softer when you're crashing on it. These are really nice modifications to do because it's very simple. The shape is there. The weight is in a place where I have room to add a taper and just remove this surface and get it to open up nicely. All right, this is the 22 Peisty Masters dry ride. I didn't mention in the before video, but this is actually a B20 that Peisty makes. And if I'm correct in this, I think they actually have it made in Turkey at one of the major Turkish factories. And then they just ship it to Switzerland and slap Peisty on it. This is the one that had that gray paint finish on it. And all I did with this one is lathe the top and the bottom to remove the paint and do a little bit of a taper at the edge, but zero hammering on this thing. And you'll see just how much of an effect just removing that outer layer has on the sound. Next up, the Zildjian K-Con medium thin low ride. I get K Constantinople cymbals in the shop for modification all the time. These things come in very frequently, mainly because Zildjian has done a great job of marketing this cymbal to very serious jazz drummers that have a very finely attuned ear for cymbals. And they have some quirks, which is why I receive them in my shop to do modifications on. Some of the quirks, or most of the quirks, actually have to do with the style bell they have on these. I would, if I was designing the Zildjian K-Con series, I would do a different bell, and I think it would solve a lot of the issues that they have. But that's just my opinion. obviously Zildjian is, they like this series and they're going to maybe keep going with it for a while. Who knows? But the bell, it is a little bit smaller and it's a little bit more triangular in shape. It doesn't have like a very wide, gradual slope to it. It really kind of quickly, it's almost like it has an inward to upward trajectory to it as opposed to like a sharp up and over kind of thing. And this gives a very high pitched, a little bit more piercing sound to the bell. And a lot of these, this is actually one of the nicer bells I've heard on a K-Con. A lot of the ones, especially on the 22s, they have a lot of weight as well as that triangular, smaller shaped bell. So it gets a very piercing tonal sound that is, you have to play it so quietly for it not to just make your ears bleed. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to work on the bell a little bit. I'm going to take a little bit of weight off of it just to get it mellowed out a little bit. And then I'm going to lay the top surface, do a little bit of a taper at the edge. The customer likes the cymbal, but just wants a very minor tweak to it. I did their 22-inch K-Con, and all I did on that was just thin it out a little bit so that it was a little bit lower pitched and worked well in lower volume music. So I'm doing the same thing to this one. One thing I wanted to note, the second I hit the bell, I knew of another problem that was in the cymbal. And that problem has to do with right at the base of the bell. So you can kind of tell here if you look at the base that there's almost a trajectory of a little bit of a dip before it hits the base of the bell. So it crests right about here and then flattens out to the base. This is a surefire sign that you have some kind of hum or possibly like a weird overtone barking seal kind of thing right at the base of the bell. And you can hear it typically when you hit the bell, and sometimes you can hear it when you play the body of the cymbal. This is a nicely balanced cymbal, so this flat portion into the bell isn't as much of a problem, but you can hear it if you focus in on the, well, I'll just play it and you can kind of listen for it. It's a little bit of a thump sound almost, like a thump, thump, thump. And that just comes from the flatness and or the dip that it has right before it hits the bell. So what I'm going to do is go on the underside and do a ring of hammering right here all the way around to give it a little bit of support and hopefully take that flat portion and kind of give it more this trajectory. And then if that doesn't work, I'm going to go in on the underside of the bell, do the same thing, another ring just right up into the bell here, which will kind of grow the bell out and also pull this material up. And we'll try to get that trajectory to be consistent from the edge of the bell all the way to the edge of the cymbal. So this is the K Constantinople, 20-inch, medium thin low, I believe it was. And just like I said in the before video, I went in, did the hammering underneath here, the hammering right at the base of the bell, just a little bit there. And I changed the trajectory of the cymbal so that there's no longer a flat portion here. It actually, the cymbal crests right at the base of the bell. This helped a lot with that thumpy, hummy sound that it had. And then from there, it was just a matter of take a little bit more weight off the bell, drop the pitch of that bell, make it a little less piercing and shrill, and then lay the top surface, give it a little bit more of a taper here so that it had this really nice crash that activates at a very low volume. It's also very warm and mellow. The stick still sits on top of the wash. There's separation there, so the overall pitch of the cymbal is lower, but the stick definition is still sitting above it. So we've kind of cleared that gap, or created a gap, really, between the highs of the stick definition and the lows of the wash. And that just creates a more high-def sound, like I've said in previous clips.